Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. I'm Daryl Stranger. It's been almost 2 months since residents of Iqaluit, Nunavut have been unable to drink their tap water due to fuel contamination. The Army's effort to provide water is still stalled. Government approval for the needed fix is slow to come, and residents are irritated. Kent Driscoll picks it up for us from Iqaluit.
This is out at the Sylvia Grinnell River in Iqaluit today, where the armed forces were purifying water to distribute to Iqaluit residents. A windstorm a week ago took out one of their tents, so this is where they've moved the operation. This hangar at the Iqaluit airport is known as the FOL, Forward Operating Location. It's a NORAD hangar for fighter jets. While the armed forces remain optimistic, they've only been able to provide water for 11 days of the 51 where we've had no drinking water. Everyone had higher hopes for that project, including Iqaluit Mayor Kenny Bell.
I'm not sure if this was the best course of action for us. It's added a lot of extra work, trying to switch over. Our trucks need 24 hours to switch over between sources, between cleaning and flushing. Changing any kind of service is really hard for us, especially in the middle of an emergency.
That means bottled water is what is being distributed. Who distributes that? Mostly City of Iqaluit recreation workers. What does that mean for Iqaluit? The pool and the gym are closed. The hockey rinks are closed 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. The staff are already working.
Yeah, because we don't have enough staff. So we had to pull staff from our rec facilities to help deliver water. And again, we've been trying to hire people for $32 an hour to hand out water and ask for volunteers and ask for government assistance with their staff. None of those things have happened.
The city has been testing the tap water. They say it now passes every test they put it through. The government in Nunavut provided the city a checklist of things they need to see before the do not consume order is lifted. Iqaluit's mayor thinks their list goes too far and is preventing a return to safe drinking water.
But those are for future problems that could exist. So we have some concerns about that, of course, because the water's been testing good since at least the 23rd of last month. Of October. So we've been under do not consume for a long time with clean water coming out of our plant. So of course we're getting to the point where we can't operate anymore.
So on day 51, Iqaluit waits. We don't drink the tap water. We don't use the recreation facilities. We line up for water. There's a saying that Iqaluit residents can really identify with. When you carry your own water, you learn the value of every drop. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Well, here we are again. Quebec's COVID-19 case numbers are spiking to their highest seen in over 6 months, leaving First Nations and Inuit communities bracing for pre-holiday impact of the pandemic's so-called fifth wave. Here's Lindsay Richardson now with the latest.
Things were good while they lasted, but Quebec's health minister is back to being the bearer of bad news.
I confirm that for the moment, a first case of the new variant has been confirmed in Quebec.
By Wednesday, the daily COVID count in Quebec surpassed 1,200 cases, the highest they've been since April. The vaccine rollout for kids aged 5 to 11 is underway, but in the meantime, Dubé says cases are going up in schools. International travel also cause for concern.
We can see that the variant is starting to spread all over the world, so no matter where you travel, you must be careful.
This week, the feds confirmed Canada's first case of the Omicron variant came through the Montreal airport. Another came through Ottawa. While the Delta variant is still dominant in Quebec, the Cree Health Board says their eyes are on Ottawa, and this week reported one travel-related case in Iqaluit. With their first COVID-related death not far in the rear view, the northern Quebec region of Nunavut is reporting a total of 62 cases. Communities in central Quebec, like Wamotashi, are seeing small COVID clusters tied to schools. Council is pressing parents to vaccinate their kids and report their symptoms ASAP.
Si la personne a des symptômes puis elle attend une semaine puis elle a la COVID, il y a beaucoup plus de risques de propager l'infection dans la communauté.
But the risk remains highest to the south, like in Kahnawake Mohawk territory, reporting 29 active cases and 70 community members in isolation. Kids there can line up for their shots as of this weekend, but public safety still considers it a red alert situation.
We're all here, trying to minimize this. We don't want to overreact, but we don't want to underreact as well, because we want to get a handle on where things are going. Everybody wants to have a safe, holiday season. Everybody wants to enjoy the holiday season, especially our children.
Quebec's Public Health Ministry says the next 2 weeks are critical, and without improvement, they'll likely be doubling down on preventative measures again in time for the holidays in hopes of lowering the daily case count. In the meantime, they're pressing for booster shots and vaccination of the 5 to 11 age group whenever and wherever those vaccines are available. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
Meanwhile, Indigenous leaders in Saskatchewan are grappling with the opioid crisis that's now reached the doorsteps of many First Nations communities. APTN's Leanne Sanders reports.
We are losing them fast and we are quite concerned. So as an elder, I too bring that message across. We need to work together, bring our communities together, and to have the surrounding neighbors and neighboring bands to come together.
Elder Mary Rose Netauhau was among a group of mental health and addictions treatment advocates from First Nations across the province who met near Prince Albert last week to address the drug crisis. Statistics from the Saskatchewan Coroner's Service show 364 suspected and confirmed drug-related deaths so far this year. Last year, the total was 314. Alcohol and drug abuse worker Joel McIntyre from the English River First Nation says opioids are now knocking at the door.
Because of COVID, the addictions went high. Suicide thoughts are going high. We had just dealt with one recently, and now we're dealing with drugs, which is not as bad, I should say, to my neighbors down south here, but it's knocking at our door. And meth is one of them.
The advocates met at HOP, a youth outreach center just outside of Prince Albert, where after-school programs from art to recreation give youth a place to belong. Founder Brian LeBlanc says reconnecting young people to their culture will help them recognize how valuable they are so they can be strong.
Giving them options and opportunities and letting them decide. But it's challenging and it's definitely getting worse. It's definitely the challenges that occur and that they face every day. It takes courage, it takes strength to stand there and turn things down and stuff.
Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The Yukon has surpassed British Columbia in having the highest opioid death rate in Canada. Yukon's rate for overdose deaths per 100,000 is 48.4, exceeding BC's rate of 40.4 deaths. The Yukon Coroner's Service says at least 21 people in the territory have died this year from toxic illicit drug use. All of the deaths involved opioids of various forms of fentanyl. Since 2016, 54 people in the territory have died from illicit opioid use. In Yellowknife, questions continue around the announcement of mothers having to travel to Edmonton to deliver babies. The Northwest Territories is looking at well over $1 million in medical travel expenses alone. And it's not just the dollar sign that has families stressed. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs has that story.
Kilulak Arnunak has her packing list ready. She's one of roughly 90 expected mothers from the Northwest Territories and Western Nunavut being sent to Edmonton to deliver a baby.
Don't forget clothes for the tiny human that's going to be showing up and what to put in a hospital bag.
She's 36 weeks along, and with a complicated pregnancy, her specialists in Yellowknife had talked about inducing her early, but those plans may change.
Switching medical support this close to the due date is very jarring and very concerning because I don't know what they're going to be like. I don't know what their opinions are. And the discussion around early inducement was the specialist I had been seeing's opinion. So this new doctor might have completely different views. Maybe this person will feel wait and see, in which case, what if he's 2 weeks late and I'm just in Edmonton for like 6 weeks?
Anunak first learned Stanton Territorial Hospital was closing their obstetrics unit by way of social media.
He got someone from primary care to call me who didn't really know what was going on, and then somebody from the hospital called me. They also didn't know what was going on.
Needless to say, there was a lot of back and forth.
I finally got a call yesterday from somebody who had spoken with the Indigenous wellness facility in Edmonton and clarified that they wanted me to fly down earlier than planned, just because of the complications from the summer. But nobody had communicated that, so it was a solid 2 or 3 hours of just blind panic, talking to people who had no idea what was going on.
In the NWT Legislative Assembly, MLAs are crunching the numbers.
It will be approximately $12,500 for the patient and her escort to go to Edmonton and stay there for 28 days or 4 weeks. This cost includes flights, accommodation, transportation, and meals.
Note, that doesn't include the cost Alberta healthcare system will charge the NWT, of which Minister Green says is an unclear number and depends on complexity of births.
This is where I've been putting all of my nesting energy these last few weeks into finishing this guy up. So,
for Anunak, she wants clarification on what supports are available.
So I have friends that have kids at home who are working and their spouses are working, dogs, pets, houses. Like it's the subarctic in the middle of winter. You can't just leave houses a lot of the time. Like everything freezes. And the GNWT has not given any indication to a lot of people how they're going to help support families at this time.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
All right, we need to take a short break, but still ahead, Wolastoqey chiefs in New Brunswick have filed a domestic lawsuit against major forestry companies and the province's power utility. We'll tell you why next. Welcome back to Eastern Canada now, where Wolastoqey chiefs in New Brunswick have filed a domestic lawsuit naming major forestry companies and the province's power utility for exploiting natural resources within their traditional territories without their consent. Indra Moore reports.
Almost 1 year ago, the 6 Wolastoqey chiefs filed a claim to New Brunswick's Court of Queen's Bench seeking Aboriginal title, which covers about half the province of New Brunswick. While the new claim, filed today, names industries such as forestry giant J.D. Irving that operates on about 20% of the title claim area. Patricia Bernard, chief of Madawaska, says,
"These private companies are beneficiaries of the land, water, and resources that were illegally taken from us. This is our traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered land, and we are owed compensation for the last 200 years of land and resource theft."
The new claim seeks compensation from the New Brunswick Crown for allowing commercial operations on traditional land and Wolastoqey ownership of the land, water, and resources. But Ross Purley, chief of Nagudguk, says negotiations have been futile.
These companies haven't shown a willingness to negotiate in good faith or show the respect that we need for our treaty rights.
The Wolastoqey lands are unceded and unsurrendered. Bernard says the peace and friendship treaties have been ignored for over 200 years.
Today's statement of claims should be seen as an opportunity to correct those wrongs and help our ecosystem heal. Let us, the guardians of this land for time immemorial, ensure our traditional lands thrive for its Indigenous and settler residents alike for centuries to come.
Bernard said it may take decades till the claim is settled. J.D. Irving did not respond to APTN's interview request by deadline. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabukduk, also known as Halifax.
For 3 consecutive years, the RCMP raided Wet'suwet'en camps during a pipeline conflict in northern British Columbia. Slato has lived with her family in a land reoccupation for nearly a decade. She says their resistance in the territory will continue even after the most recent arrests. Lee Wilson reports.
Get your gun off me! This is sovereign Wet'suwet'en land!
Gidamden Access Point spokesperson Slato, Molly Wickham, yells at an RCMP officer to lower his weapon from inside the blockades. In mid-November, heavily armed RCMP enforced a coastal GasLink injunction, which has now led to over 30 arrests. We traveled up the Maurice River Forestry Road to speak with Slato inside her cabin on the territory. She's lived here with her family since 2012.
It actually goes back to 2009 when the Gidimt'en and the other Wet'suwet'en had a series of all clans meetings to start erecting cabins on our territories. And so there was one proposed for each clan territory. And this is actually the site of the one that was proposed for Gidimt'en.
Slato shared the first land reoccupation was Unistaten, which is associated with one of the 13 house groups, but falls under the Gilsaihu clan, located 66 kilometers up the forestry road. 20 kilometers lower, the Gidimt'en access point was built in 2018 as part of a resistance to the pipeline. Coastal GasLink is the pipeline builder for the 670-kilometer natural gas pipeline that will run from Dawson Creek in northeastern BC to a terminal in Kitimat. The company has signed agreements with 20 First Nation bands along the route. According to the company, the project is 50% complete. In a recent video, Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief Was stated the hereditary chiefs were never consulted. Slato says they're upholding Wet'suwet'en law, which they say is confirmed in the 1997 Supreme Court of Canada case, Delgamuuk.
And the fact that the Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chiefs and the Gigsan Hereditary Chiefs had title and never extinguished their title, what that means is that we still have title to the land, and that we are the decision makers, that our clan system and our decision-making system within that land governance is the decision-making body.
The Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief stance remains clear. No pipelines through the territory. In 2019, Coastal GasLink secured an injunction against blockades stopping the construction of the pipeline. The 2020 arrest of Wet'suwet'en and supporters led to global solidarity protest. But then the pandemic hit.
All of the work that was happening in support across the nation, Shut Down Canada happened in a response to the raids on Wet'suwet'en in 2020. There's a lot of political work going on, a lot of meetings going on, and the pandemic kind of just brought everything to a halt.
But through the pandemic, pipeline work continued in Wet'suwet'en territory, and conflicts between Wet'suwet'en and CGL continued. But in late September, when the company planned to pass the pipeline under the Maurice River, the Wet'suwet'en clan set up a blockade near the drill site. Slato says their opposition to the pipeline is based on protecting clean drinking water.
It has been mostly centered around protecting our river. That's been the biggest issue the whole time. That's been the biggest issue for any pipeline that has planned to cross Wet'suwet'en territory, is the issue of them crossing Wet'suwet'en.
In early October, Coastal GasLink released a statement that they were using the safest method to pass. Trenchless crossings are proven to allow the pipe to be installed under the water body without affecting the flow of the river or stream. Currently, there are thousands of trenchless crossings throughout BC, operating safely under rivers and streams of all sizes. Then in mid-November, Wet'suwet'en Hereditary Chief Was sent an evacuation order and a timeline to CGL to leave the territory. They then set up more blockades on the roads. CGL put out a statement they had 500 workers behind the blockades. An RCMP presence increased, and then the RCMP set up a checkpoint 28 kilometers on the road. Slato says Wet'suwet'en members started being denied passage with food and medical supplies. Then on November 18th and 19th, there were 2 days of RCMP raids.
It was a pretty traumatic experience, obviously, to have a gun pointed at you, such a large weapon pointed at you with a laser beam, and I could distinctly hear the dogs. The dogs were what I heard the most, and I did not take my eyes off the man who had the gun on me.
There were over 30 arrests on the raids in Wet'suwet'en territory, including the arrest of a filmmaker and a photojournalist. Slato was not surprised at the level of force used in the arrests.
You look at other occupations and other so-called protests is how they frame it, and you don't see that kind of violence coming at people. You only see that kind of violence when it's Indigenous people defending their land and their water.
After being held for 5 days, Slato was released and returned home to her cabin in the territory. She says their resistance will continue as they're upholding ancient Wet'suwet'en law.
Because of our sovereignty and because of our claim and our title to the land is a huge threat to private industry and extraction companies like this. And it's a huge threat to the state. And so they will come in using that kind of force because we are a threat to them, simply because we're Indigenous people on our land trying to uphold our laws.
This past Monday, according to the Edmonton access point, there were 2 more arrests as the forestry road was blockaded. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Cassia Territory.
All right, we need to take one more break, but when we come back, a multisensory experience at the Banff Gondola has been unveiled by the Stoney Nakoda Nation. Welcome back. People from all over the world travel to Banff, Alberta to explore the Rocky Mountains, but how many of them realize the famous park was carved out of Stoney Nakoda territory? The tribe is trying to rectify that. This week they unveiled a multisensory experience at the Banff Gondola that showcases parts of their culture. Tamara Pimentel has more.
Top of Sulphur Mountain.
When the sun goes down, Sulphur Mountain in Banff lights up, creating an immersive Stoney Nakoda experience with night rise. On the gondola ride up, you can hear the stories passed down by elders and narrated by Cherith Mark.
This project started off with elders discussing and telling us what the mountains mean to them.
At the top of the mountain, visitors can see the Stoney language.
Our Stoney winter moons are represented here because in Stoney Nakoda calendar, winter lasts about seven moons. I believe this is a great opportunity for visitors and guests to hear the sound and the language of the area.
It's a collaboration with Pursuit, Moment Factory, and the Stoney Nation. Kristen Ryder with the Nation says it's the first time the Nakota Sioux are showcased here.
You may visit Banff and then not really know whose traditional territory you're on. So this is really important for us because a lot of people come up here to the gondola to experience. But this is really special because it's at night.
Light shows, bonfires, and stories light up the mountain. But that music you hear, it's produced by Stoney's Anders Hunter.
My role in today's day and age is to keep the traditional songs and the social songs strong and alive. I think when they hear the music and the sounds and the voices and everything that's been put together, it's going to be a memory that they'll never forget for sure.
The Night Rise experience is running now until March 12th. Ryder says it brings community pride and gives a voice to the people who call this land home.
So it's special, and I'm glad that we're involved and we can say, hey, we've been here for a very long time. Our people have been here, we've gathered here, we've picked medicines here. These are our traditional lands.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Banff.
That story had plenty of beautiful images. Well done, Tamara. All right, that's all we have for you tonight. For news anytime, check out our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.